Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again to the Aura News broadcast for our daily English news edition. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. Aura News has attained the interim opinions of the Venice Commission on the Albanian judicial reform. The Commission praises the efforts to realize a comprehensive reform, but they have not given their approval for the creation of the various institutions that were suggested in the draft by the Albanian and foreign experts. The document reads, as a preliminary remark, the Venice Commission notes that the draft of amendments introduce several new bodies that are supposed to control one another. However, this complicated institutional scheme may have an unintended consequence. It creates an air of mistrust that may affect the public esteem of the justice system, which is already quite low. In addition, the creation of so many new bodies will require a mass recruitment of legal professionals, while the pool of potential candidates possessing the necessary education, training, experience, and independence may be fairly limited in such a small country as Albania. The Venice Commission highlights a problem with the mandates of the existing bodies, as well as the new bodies that will be created. According to the Commission, the creation of new constitutional bodies will not automatically terminate the mandate of the existing bodies and aims to reduce the freedom of choice of the constitutional bodies involved in the appointment process. Their composition should be examined more closely to avoid influence. The Venice Commission has not approved the termination of the mandate of the Prosecutor General and requests a mechanism that would keep the mandate from being blocked by vote. In their words, the appointment is to be made by a 3/5 majority of the Assembly, but there is no anti-deadlock mechanism if this majority is not reached. The mandate of the Prosecutor General should not necessarily intersect with the reform's entry into power. It is acceptable for him to stay in office until the end of his term. Regarding the establishment of a disciplinary tribunal of justice, the Venice Commission declares that the presence of the Minister of Justice and the Prosecutor General is problematic, since the tribunal is projected to be a kind of judge that will monitor non-judicial bodies. The Venice Commission also questions whether a High Inspectorate of Justice should be created or not, given the human and financial resources that are needed for it to function properly. The opinion says that the Minister of Justice is a member with no voting rights in the High Council of Justice and the High Council of Prosecutors, as well as the Inspectorate of Justice. It reads, the role of the Minister of Justice in the High Justice Inspectorate and in the High Judicial Council needs to be reconsidered to avoid conflict of interest. The Minister of Justice should not sit on the disciplinary tribunal. And regarding the Constitutional Court, the Venice Commission recommends a clarification of who is to decide on the disciplinary measures against judges. Constitutional decisions should generally have binding force and to retain the power to review at least the procedure of constitutional amendments. The Venice Commission welcomes the empowerment of the High Court, but asks for clarification of how the cases for high officials will be reviewed. The document reads, Article 34 implies that the High Court will no longer have the competence of the first instance court in cases concerning high state officials, but will only act as a court of cassation and examine appeals on the points of law. Given the involvement of the politicians in the election of the judges of this court, the proposed solution appears sound, but the question remains which court will hear cases in which the high state officials are accused. In their 30-page document, the Venice Commission indicates that this reform is urgent for Albania and that the critical condition of the system justifies radical solutions. In the session on Wednesday in which the Albanian experts were heard, the Venice Commission decided to send a group of experts to Albania in January to discuss the reform with the Albanian representatives. The Commission is also waiting for a revised draft in February, which will help them adopt the final opinion in March. The allies of the ruling coalition, Prime Minister Rama and Assembly Speaker Ilir Meta, have both welcomed the adoption of the decriminalization law in Parliament yesterday. Prime Minister Rama declared that now is the time to reveal who the incriminated really are. He says that this will take place in the January plenary session and that the country will see that the criminals are in the opposition. He said, I look forward to the law entering into force so that we can see who the criminals are. Everyone will be held responsible for any slander or criminal activity they have committed. Ilir Meta said that the decriminalization is not a matter of names, but a process in which the politics and public administration will be freed from the incriminated. He said, "This is not a matter of statistics and names. A serious situation arose, and I am glad that a solution was found. We are determined to implement this law no matter how many people are penalized. It is important for the Albanians to be at peace about the integrity of their representatives," said the Assembly Speaker. The allies of the government made these statements after the meeting of the coalition coordinators, which was attended by the head of the PJIU, the leaders of the Socialist Party and the SMI, the Minister of Justice, and the Interior Minister. The Democratic chairman Lulzim Basha has also commented on the adoption of the decriminalization law, expressing his readiness to see it implemented. Mr. Basha was not convinced of the will of the majority. He said, "Unfortunately, there are clear signs that Eddie Rama has no intention to implement this law." According to him, the Socialist Party itself is under the control of criminals. He states that the Democratic Party will continue with the same dedication that they have shown so far in their battle for free elections. Mr. Basha stated once again that the opposition will continue to protest until the government is removed from power. The EU Commissioner for Enlargement has supported the adoption of the decriminalization law in Albania. Commissioner Hahn made the following comments today. Thursday was an important date for the Parliament of Albania. Following several months of debate among the political parties, the members of the Parliament adopted the decriminalization law. This legislative development is expected to further strengthen the rule of law, enhance integrity among public officials, boost the fight against corruption, and also increase the citizens' confidence in the functioning of the state. I welcome the adoption of this package, which demonstrates that constructive cross-party dialogue is the best way to pursue the reforms. The EU reiterates that Albania is facing a number of very delicate challenges, which require constructive dialogue among all the political parties. Progress on the reform agenda is important to move the country forward on its path toward European integration, as well as to further guarantee the entrenchment of the rule of law, declared Mr. Hahn. The Minister of Justice has announced that for the new year, 720 convicted criminals will be given amnesty. This amnesty will be given to those who were sentenced to 2 years in prison before November 30th of this year. Any who are considered to be high-risk offenders will not be granted amnesty. The minister said that the penitentiary system is overcrowded, which causes great difficulty in providing services. Mr. Magnani said that the prisons have a capacity of 5,584 people, but they are currently holding 6,413 on average. The opposition has accused the majority of giving amnesty to oil and medicine smugglers, while the poor are being kept in prison. An MP from the PJIU has proposed that the amnesty be given to elderly prisoners who have served the greater part of their sentence. The bill on amnesty was adopted in today's Law Commission with only the votes of the majority. The famed Albanian humanist and Nobel Prize winner Mother Teresa will be made a saint by the Vatican in 2016. The Vatican released the following statement today. The Holy Father has authorized the Congregation for the Causes of the Saints to proclaim the decree concerning the miracle attributed to the intercession of the Blessed Mother Teresa. She is expected to be canonized in Rome in September. The process of being recognized as a saint requires proof of at least 2 miracles. Mother Teresa was beatified in 2003 after Pope John Paul II authenticated a miracle attributed to her. He judged that the curing of an Indian woman suffering from an abdominal tumor was the result of the supernatural intervention of the late Mother Teresa. The other miracle concerned the cure of a Brazilian man with a brain disease, which has now been authenticated by Pope Francis. That concludes our edition for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching, and please join us again at the same time tomorrow night. Have a great evening.